Run with Chestnut.
Welcome to the Run with Chestnut podcast, where we talk about books, fitness, finance, and anything else on our minds. This is episode number 16. My name is Francesco, and today I'm joined by my two best buddies, whom you are hopefully acquainted with by now. First, what's up, Melissa?
Hello.
And Simon.
Hello.
Perfect. Today, after a little intro where we get a little update, a little factoid, we're going to talk about everything to do with sleep, which is perfect because, Melissa, you sound sleepy.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're going to talk all things sleep. What does it mean to get good sleep? How much sleep you need? All the things you can do to improve your sleep, and all the things you should not do to not worsen your sleep, if that makes sense.
Can I go to sleep then?
Yeah.
You can go to sleep after this episode if you implement everything we talk about so that your sleep is good sleep. And we're also going to talk about what do we mean by good sleep, right? Just because you get 8-9 hours every day, which you're not getting right now, Melissa, but if you were, that doesn't necessarily mean that sleep is good, right? Like a person who's getting only 7 hours a night can have a lot more restful sleep than someone who's getting 9 hours of sleep or 10 hours of sleep.
Oh, yes. I wish to hear more about this.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about how to get very effective sleep, right? People often say, oh, you know, my schedule's too busy. I have too much stuff going on, so I don't have time to sleep a lot. Well, maybe if you optimized your sleep and made it the most effective possible, you would get more with less quantity. So,
or turn into a cat.
Yeah, quality over quantity, as we try to explain to our buddy Andrew many, many times.
Yep.
So, but before we get started, we're going to touch on two little things. The first thing is on the previous workout episode. So for those who don't remember, Mondays we put out health and fitness type episodes. Thursdays we put out other types of episodes, whether we talk about blindness or books and things like that. Last workout episode, we talked about nutrition and like pre, intra, and post-workout nutrition, things like that. Simon has a little update for us. Simon, you want to talk about, well,
Yes.
First remind us what your problem was and tell us what you did.
My problem was that when I would go on a morning run, I wouldn't eat anything. And then after the run, I'd feel a huge crash because I didn't eat anything. So I made sure to have a banana or two before running, an hour before running, and I end up feeling great. And granted, I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that I started eating before, and also how much it has to do with the fact that it's not humid and that the weather is cooler.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Now obviously the only way to do that is to test it, or the only way to know for sure, right? My prediction is that the weather being cooler and less humid will make you feel better during the run, but the energy crash after the run, I feel like, has a lot more to do with you taking in those extra calories.
Hasn't Simon been running for years now?
Yes, but
I feel like you haven't been doing these early runs normally, right?
no.
Yeah, like the earliest is it 10 o'clock, the Saturday morning runs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we normally have Saturday morning runs during non-pandemic times.
Right.
But because of the situation now, we've been running at 7 in the morning. So,
Well, no, but I still run with Mark at 9 in the morning.
yeah, but I've, like for the 10 o'clock ones, for example, in the past, I'm assuming you ate before then because you wouldn't get home till later.
Yeah, most of the times I would. Sometimes I did not, and I don't remember how I felt actually. Maybe I felt the same, but I paid attention to it more this time. But also, Melissa, this was also coming off of how many months of not running?
That's true. From March, basically.
From March all the way up to July.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, not even just not running, not like leaving your house, right?
Not leaving your house, walking up to the 5 avenues to the subway.
Oh, no.
Yeah, all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so
I
your
forgot
base
how much
level
of
of
a
fitness.
pain avenues are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, in Manhattan, New York City, our blocks, our streets are very, very short, but our avenues are very long.
Yes.
Well, we say very long compared to the streets. There's some cities that have,
Meaning the distance that you walk from one street to the other is very short, whereas if you walk from one avenue to the other, you feel sad.
Yeah.
There might be like 5 street lengths for one avenue. At some, obviously it varies, but
Right.
Yeah.
And when I would go to school, I'd have to walk from like 4 avenues just to get to the subway station.
so cool. All right. That's awesome, Simon. Keep us up to date on that.
Yeah.
This second little factoid I have for you guys, a little trivia question. And this is something I was going to bring up last episode on Monday, Thursday. Well, whatever. What has 11-inch long teeth, a punctured rib and skull, and may or may not be categorized as a value investment?
What?
Yep. What has 11-inch long teeth, a punctured rib and skull, and may or may not be categorized, or I should say included in the same conversation as value investing?
A zombie.
I'll give you a hint. His name is Stan.
Mr. Stan. I don't know.
You guys give up?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So Stan is a T-Rex, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? So Stan is the most intact fossil of a Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur that I think has ever been found or like excavated, right? And is going to be up on auction on October 6th for between $6 to $8 million for the entire fossil. And it's going to be displayed at Rockefeller Center until October 6th,
Rockefeller?
Yeah. So I'm very interested in potentially walking by and seeing this massive,
Who's going to want to buy that?
thousands and thousands. You'd be very surprised.
It's a dinosaur, Simon.
I know that.
And it's the most intact ever. It has 188 bones.
What about the one at
wow.
Natural History Museum? I'm sure you've been there.
Yeah.
The big giant.
I'm pretty sure they said the most intact, so I'm assuming it's more than that.
Because they have some big dinosaurs in there.
11-inch long teeth, 188 bones. And when it was alive, it's estimated to have weighed 7 to 8 tons, which is
Holy
a lot of
shit.
weight. That's about 14 to 16,000 pounds.
Wow.
How many elephants is
Yeah.
that?
And the funny part is at the end of the auction piece, the reason why I'm saying value investing is because some people are, within the investment world, right? Because most likely a museum is going to get this or something like that, right? Or someone like a
Right.
rich foundation is going to buy it and then donate it to a museum, which is what has
Right.
been done most of the time in the past. But people are talking about would you, if you had $50 million, would you invest, quote unquote, say $7-8 million into this dinosaur with the assumption that with scarcity and supply and demand and all that stuff and things, appreciating in value over time, that potentially it might be worth more in the future. Would this be a good investment?
I feel
And
like
that's so
you
fun.
would.
I would not.
Oh, really?
Listen, I could think of a lot more fun things to put $7 or $8 million into than a dinosaur fossil. Mainly
wonder if
because I'm not
Andrew
super
would.
into dinosaurs. Yeah, you think Andrew would?
Probably. He brought, do we want to say this? He brought a poster.
That's true. He did. Yeah. Okay. That man has some issues with impulse control. But besides that, So it's kind of funny. But anyway, so
He probably
the reason,
just put it in his front doorway, take off your shoes, otherwise the dinosaur shall
an
eat
$8
you.
million fossil as a front door icon. But anyway, the thing I found funny about this is at the bottom of the auction piece or article, right? It says, it says, what is included, right? 188 bones, obviously, all included. Elaborate support structure, which in and of itself is, worth a crap ton of money, I'm assuming. And after that, it says assembly required.
Wow.
Which is if you're into Legos, I feel like you would be into this. So,
That's funny.
right? Okay, cool. That's what I
Or
found.
have IKEA get it for a promotional, thing, your ads. I don't know. That'd be funny.
Except if it was just like an IKEA piece of furniture, when you finish assembling this dinosaur, you would have a bunch of screws and stuff that you don't know what it was for. And you just kind of shove it under the couch to pretend like it didn't exist. Because the table's standing. Clearly it didn't need this extra wooden piece and extra screws. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I built completely tangent, but I built a Wayfair. You know Wayfair?
No.
It's like mail order IKEA basically. Like they don't have stores like IKEA does, but it's still like build yourself. So I built this
shelving
table
unit.
from Wayfair, and there were some spare pieces remaining after
Oh,
it was
no.
finished. Yeah. So anyway, okay, cool. That was that. Let's get into sleep so that Melissa can go to sleep.
Yes.
Ooh.
So I feel like we all, like everyone, people who are listening to this episode probably see the title, so they know it's about sleep, or they listen to our intro. But let's briefly talk about all the good things that come from sleep. Do you guys want to name, each of you, like name one thing you think is good? Like, why do we need sleep?
So that our brains are more rested and we're able to concentrate on whatever we need to do the next day. Well,
Very
and our
true.
bodies too.
I hate, can you imagine like trying to concentrate in a class like Melissa has to do after like 3-4 hours of sleep, right? It's not a pleasant time.
Yeah, no.
Melissa, give me one thing, or
No.
what's good about sleep? Why do we want sleep?
Dreams. No, I mean yes, but isn't it? Can't you what's that word? Not consolidate, process. No,
like memories and things.
yes.
Yeah. So, the way you basically get things from short-term memory to long-term memory is through REM cycle sleep, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why the way I would cram, this is totally random, but in high school when I had to memorize lyrics for the bands that I was in, but I didn't have a lot of time, and there were like 40, 50 songs I had to memorize too. Well, maybe not that many, but a few dozen at least. I would read over them once, just quickly the night before, and then go to sleep, and then read over them again the next day, and that would always result in me memorizing better than if I had actually like spent 30 minutes to an hour in one shot trying to memorize.
Really?
So yeah. Like just and I don't know why I thought to do that. I think I just read some like Times article or something, just like, oh, you need REM sleep for memory. I'm like, oh, let me just try it, But anyway, yes, very good points. I would add a few things. So we're in the future, we're going to do an episode specifically about how to lose body fat. But a major thing about that is if you take the same group, if you take two groups of people, right, and you feed them exactly the same thing, they work out, tons of workout, lots of good food, everything like perfect, identical, right? If one group gets 9 hours of sleep a night, the other group gets 5 hours, they both, lose weight, build muscle, but the group that gets more sleep builds a lot more muscle and loses a lot of fat while not losing nearly as much muscle if they're in a caloric deficit, right? And the group that gets only 5 hours of sleep lost a lot of muscle, didn't lose as much fat, basically just, and this is like a weight loss study, right?
Wow.
But the point being, like, if you said like, what's one thing I can do to build more muscle, lose more fat without actually doing anything and or expending any sort of energy, the answer would be get more sleep.
Huh.
Because just by improving your sleep, you will improve body composition. And that's been studied and proven like multiple times. Like, it is so hard to get any sort of physical adaptation if your sleep is compromised. So, and even if you're not an athlete, just like there's, we do like so many hard things in our life to try to look better. It's like, what's one thing I can do to look better, body composition wise, feel better, that doesn't actually require me to do anything, like no energy or anything. It's just sleep. So get good sleep, guys. Simon said cognitive function. Another thing is a very, very clear difference in mood, depression, like emotional health, stuff like that. If you get more sleep, you're happier, you're more positive, you're more upbeat. If you get less sleep, a lot of those things can happen, and a lot of that has to do with built up brain chemistry over time. But so that, those are the basics. There are a lot of good things about sleep. Like, I love sleep. Later on, we can talk a little bit, or maybe a different episode, but the more athletic you get, sometimes your sleep can get a little weird. Like comes a point in my training where if I train more than a certain number of hours a week, my sleep will kind of get off and I'll have some trouble sleeping. That's a kind of a complicated discussion, so we'll save that for another time. But I just wanted to lay that out. Anything you guys want to add before we get into the first stuff?
I'm not quite sure where this was fit, but I'm assuming you're just going to talk about it. Not just, but you're going to talk about a typical adult, right?
We're
'Cause I
going to
know-
do the things that will apply to anyone. This is not specifically if you work out, or not specifically active people, or this type of This is just general human beings.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And I
humans.
feel like we'll split this thing into two sections. The first section will be things that we should not do. So like things to avoid doing in order to improve sleep. And the second section we'll talk about is things that you should do. So we'll start on the things that you should not do. And the number one thing, or at least this is no particular order, but the first thing I have on my list is avoiding blue light. So I'll just define a little bit of that quickly, and then maybe you guys can give some examples. So blue light is what it sounds like. It's a part of a spectrum of light, right? And the spectrum of light goes from infrared, which is invisible to the human eye, and it goes all the way across to ultraviolet, right? UV light, which is also invisible, but it's on the other side of the light spectrum. So blue light is, at the very basic example, sunlight. So normally sunlight for us tells our bodies that it's daytime, right? And because it's daytime, we should be awake. So the sun is a way that our body knows when to be awake and when to sleep, right? So before we had electricity and all that stuff, it would be easy, right? We'd wake up, sunrise, go to, and then the sun sets. We kind of gather around the campfire. Notice the campfire is not blue, right? The campfire is like orange or yellow, so that doesn't mess up with our circadian rhythm. And you go to sleep in the evening after the sun sets. So following this sun schedule, like modeling our circadian rhythm after that, is a very, very, it's something that we have done as humans for millennia.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. And real quick, I mentioned circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm can be a very complicated discussion, but at the very basic, all it is the sleep and wake schedule that's in your body. So having a proper circadian rhythm means that your body feels sleepy and tired at the right time, and it feels awake at the right time. That's basically what a circadian rhythm is. You can call it like a circadian schedule almost. But anyway, so blue light, where we come in, where things happen poorly for us, is that we get a lot of blue light exposure after the sun goes down, right? Because what happens when the sun goes down? All the lights come on, right? And so all the big harsh ceiling lights, computer screens, TV screens, phone screens, all that produces blue light, and that tells our bodies or our any sort of blue light receptors, which are in our eyes. They are elsewhere as well, but mostly in our eyes.
Oh,
And
so does
yeah.
it affect you if you have no vision?
Okay, funny you say that. So I'll tell you that in 1 second. So, but anyway, so most sighted people, again, we're blind, so we don't see, but most sighted people, you look at a computer screen, that our bodies think of that in the same way as if we were looking at sunlight, which means if you try to go to sleep 5 minutes after you finish watching a Netflix show, it's as if you are staring at the sun, and 5 minutes later, you're going to try to go to sleep because it's nighttime. That doesn't work, right? Now, so for those who are blind, you do have blue light receptors, or, that's not the scientific term, but basically receptors photoreceptors that pick up blue light. You have them elsewhere in your body. You have them up your nose and your ears. I actually have a set of headphones, but instead of earpieces, they're actually little light bulbs that shine these blue lasers into your brain. It's kind of weird, but it's awesome. I got it as an experiment to see if I can hack my circadian rhythm. But anyway, more on that later. There are very, very preliminary science or studies done. Not huge pool, so don't worry, whatever. But there may or may not be photoreceptors also in your blood or under your skin, which is why things like wearing an Apple Watch, it's questionable because there's LEDs on the back of the watch. So if you're trying to sleep, now again, we're talking super, you can ignore basically what I just said and everything will be fine because we have no idea. The main parts are in your eyes. So yes, any examples, right? We talked about like TV, phones, anything like that. Anything you guys want to weigh in on?
Well, actually, when you started talking about that, I got reminded that I can turn on, what is that called? Night something?
Night
Night
shift?
shift? Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, which maybe I should not do on the nights that I have the late classes, but now I can joyously turn on my night shift, and I don't know what it does, but even I who don't see colors, I'm like, oh, it kind of feels nicer to look at.
Yeah, so
But-
there's been some studies done on that type of light manipulation. Some people claim that just because you turn on night shift on a screen doesn't actually remove all the blue light. What I think people do agree on is that it is less blue light than if you had not turned that on. So if you have to stare at a screen for work or for school or something late at night, the least you can do is turn on sort of the night shift mode. A better thing you can do, which is still not foolproof, but it's a lot better than nothing, is get those blue light blocking glasses, right? And it's those glasses. There's a lot of different brands. If you spend a little bit of money, and by a little bit of money, I mean like $30, $40, I think, like, instead of like $2 glasses. If you buy a decent pair, I believe the brand, I don't remember the brand, I'll put in, Felix, I think Felix Gray makes some glasses. But they will basically block out the blue light without changing the color in your vision. So, and that's one way you can still watch a screen or a phone or something and not get the blue light. Anyway,
also,
you guys
does
continue.
Well, I just also wanted to ask, does it make a difference? Does it help you if you turn on the brightness on a device that doesn't have that, or something else that you can do, or does it not matter?
It makes a difference, but it's still blue light, right? It's still your body telling you that it's daytime. So like simple things you could do, and even for like sighted people or people with partial sight, is around the house when it starts to get late. I mean, obviously the best thing to do is like light candles and turn the lights off. That might be a little impractical for some people. So just get light bulbs or shades, whatever that covers the. Don't get like harsh white light. You can get either salt lamps or even a regular shade with like a orange kind of cover over it, or just find a way to get rid of the LED lights or the harsh white lights. So, yeah, there we go. Anything to add on that? Or should we get on to the next one?
No.
So actually, very related to that is avoiding harsh sounds, and this sort of all goes under the umbrella of stimulation or stimulants at night. And I don't mean, well, obviously, don't drink stimulants at night, right? Actually, I should not say that, because some people do and just don't, they don't understand why they shouldn't. So let's just do a public service announcement right now. Please do not drink caffeine late at night. Right. Even if for me, I can drink a cup of coffee and fall asleep in the next 30 minutes to an hour, and it'll be fine. When I say it'll be fine, it means I'll still be able to fall asleep, but my sleep is not as deep as it should be or otherwise would be, you know? So people metabolize caffeine at different rates, different speeds. The general theory is stop drinking caffeine after 12 to like 3 p.m. Like after that, they'll drink. And you kind of do experiments on your own body to see, how you feel about that. But the thing I was going on is harsh noises. And so things like pounding music, right? Like loud movies, things that stimulate you and make you feel excited,
Right.
And again, so in this sort of same section, if you're watching a Netflix drama and you're like super into it and you're like, raging at the screen because you're making you angry, or you're like getting excited because it's like a shooting scene or a fight scene.
Yeah.
That's maybe not the thing to watch before you go to sleep. Go ahead, Simon.
Which makes sense, because I've had those situations. I'm like, it's funny how when I'm watching a show, I could never go to sleep because I'm always just binge watching, and it's like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning. I've definitely had those days, but that explains a lot.
Because your brain's awake, right?
Right.
It's yeah. And
But
even
then
if you go ahead.
There have been times also, but when I am watching the show, I'm laying down watching the show, and then somehow I fall asleep. But maybe that's because I'm not as into it. I don't know.
I would argue that that's more the exception than the rule, right? If you're obviously, if you're tired enough, you're gonna fall asleep. But we're trying to develop a system that will ensure that you go to sleep like consistently, like every time, you know? And so
Right.
if you're watching something every time that stimulates your brain, even if it's not exciting, even if it's like if it's engaging the analytical brain, so you're watching an educational documentary or trying to like learn something new, that's still engaging your brain in a way that does not let it go to rest. Right? So I'm not saying don't listen or watch anything. For like you can listen to very like calming music if that's what you're into, or you can read a book that you like a reread a Harry Potter. I don't know, like read a book
Right,
that
right.
that does not take any sort of brain power, that you're not trying to learn a new skill in like finance. I don't know.
Speaking of sounds, do you want to talk about that app you recommended me? The one where you put on the headphones. It's like a little brainwave or something.
Yeah. So, well, this sort of same category as the light lasers that shine in my ears. It's basically just different things you can sort of hack your sleep. So it's basically just the kind doesn't matter, right? But you can, in your Echo devices or on your phones or whatever, you can like put on these sleep tracks that either give you white noise or rain or anything like that. If you find that helpful, totally go for it. If you don't find it helpful, don't worry about it. It's basically just trying to find a way to get you. I mean, all this is building into a routine, right? And we'll touch on that when we start talking about things you should do. But anyway, so does that make sense? Anything you guys want to add before we go on to the next one?
No.
Is it okay to be falling asleep with something in your ears, or or should you set a sleep timer?
I would definitely do a sleep timer, because for a few reasons. First, if there's speech in your ears, just because you're unconscious does not necessarily mean that your brain's not trying to figure out what it is, right? And also, you're like throughout the night, you were naturally going to move through sleep stages and sleep cycles, right? You go like your light sleep, and then your different stage. There's deep REM cycles. All that to say that there are parts of the night where you are in deep sleep, and there are parts of the night where your sleep is more towards the lighter side. And every time you get towards that lighter side of sleep, if there's something in your ears, there's just that much more likely for you to like wake up for a second, trying to figure out what it is, and like remember, and then go back. So which I've done for sure. So I've just got in the habit of setting a sleep timer, just so I don't have to have something going in my ears the whole time.
Right.
Cool. We talked about sort of being on your phone at night or like mental engagement, but the reiteration is just if it's something that is stimulating your brain, don't do it, right? So similar to not watching an action movie, maybe don't scroll through Facebook where every post is eliciting a different emotion in you, whether it's, excitement, which is, even though it's a positive emotion, may be not the good thing to do right before you go to sleep, or upsetting, or,
Right.
like drama or something, It's a good practice to kind of put your phone down, not right before you try to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then also...
How soon, or how... Did you say
That's
it
a
and I
very good
forgot?
question. Let's say like 2 hours, but let's so when we talk about things to do, when we talk about things that you should do, we'll start talking about like a sleep routine, which I think is kind of an important concept, so we can outline then what to do in that respect. But other things I would avoid doing real quick is don't exercise too late, meaning like, and for me, I draw the line at like 7. If I'm trying to go to sleep at 10, 11 p.m., then I would not work out past 6 or 7, and those are not necessarily intense workouts. And that's just because right after an intense workout, I don't want to try to fall asleep. You know what I mean? Like it's the last, especially
And
for
what
a few
about
hours.
stretching?
We're not going to talk about if you should or should not stretch, but if you are stretching for whatever reason, that's fine, because it's more of a calming thing, right? So like a yoga session or
okay.
like a recovery thing, or you're just doing some movements. I think that's
Right.
totally fine before you go to sleep, because
Okay.
anything that calms you down is good, So even if it's like a run or a bike ride, if it's like a super chill one that you're just doing in the park, or you're taking a walk around the block with your dog, it's totally fine. I'm talking about something that is intense.
Right. Okay.
Similarly, don't drink alcohol before you go to sleep. Why shouldn't you drink alcohol before you sleep? Because some people think, when I drink, I can go to sleep a lot easier, right? Which, yes, some people can fall asleep a lot easier with alcohol. Some people actually need alcohol to fall asleep, which is a whole other discussion. but
Yeah.
you should not necessarily drink before you go to sleep because of the impact on your sleep quality and your recovery. And so many athletes have experienced this, where you drink before you go to sleep, you wake up, and the amount of recovery that has happened during that sleep, and this, you can track this with different devices and stuff, is nowhere near as much as if you either had not drunk before you slept or drank earlier in the day. So if you drink around like 1 p.m., you have, between 1 and 10 p.m., so like 9 hours to process that alcohol through your system, and then you go to sleep. Your sleep is a lot higher quality than if you had drank at, 8, 9 p.m. and then went to sleep at 10, if that makes sense.
What about well, I guess this probably will go in the should category, but do you want to talk about some stuff people take? I don't know, people take
Yeah, let's talk about
melatonin?
let's talk about that stuff on things you should do.
Okay.
So alcohol I would put in the same category as caffeine, as maybe not to, don't do it. And if you do it, don't make a habit of doing it like every night, right? And that's about it. So those are things. And is there anything else you guys can think of things that you should not do? Even just anecdotal things you guys have noticed?
Oh, eating certain foods. What about that?
Sure, go.
I would just say eating late or eating right before you go to bed anyway.
Yes, don't eat before you go to bed.
Yeah, I made that mistake. So,
Did I not say that? Did we not talk about that?
No.
Okay,
I'm
my
half
fault.
asleep, so maybe.
Totally
Yeah.
mistake. Yeah, okay, let me say that and then talk about your experience, Simon. But yeah, basically, don't eat before you go to sleep. If I'm aiming for a 10 to 11 p.m. bedtime, means like in bed at the time, then the last meal that I'm going to eat, which is not necessarily a stuff your face meal, the last meal will be about 7 p.m., 7:30. Right?
And what is
the
that?
reason?
Yeah.
What? Say again?
Well, I know that me and my multi-countryisms, I've noticed that people eat earlier in the States, like dinner is like 7 or 8, and then here we'll eat later. But when I say dinner over there, I'm like, people mean big, table setting and, whole family thing.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Traditionally.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Whereas, here, yes, we eat later, but I would not, like, you don't cook dinner. You, like, get something out of the fridge for dinner.
Or you could cook dinner. Dinner can be many things here in the States.
No, she's talking about not in the States.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not here. I'm not there. It's like,
Right.
So yeah, that's a very good point. So what I meant is, so basically you don't want to have a lot of food in your stomach when you're trying to sleep. That's all my point. So whether you have a big meal more hours away from when you're trying to go to sleep, or you have a small meal, closer to when you sleep. And when I say closer, like 2 hours or something, just you don't want to have food in your stomach when you are trying to go to sleep. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One, there's the actual idea of digestion is a awakening act. Basically, like your body does not, if your body's digesting food, it's not necessarily wanting to go to sleep.
though
right?
I do have to say it feels good initially. Like, if you do stuff yourself with food, I know you don't like to lie down when you after you've eaten.
The reason why it feels good is and also is the same reason why you should not go to sleep right after you eat. And that reason is because it takes nutrition, it takes nutrients, it takes systems and different things, right, in your body to digest the food, right? And all those things, whether it's enzymes or different processes, all that, it takes blood, right? And so it's all transported by blood, which means that when you have a lot of food in your stomach, that means your body is gathering the blood around your stomach to either bring things there, or more accurately, actually take things away and to distribute them elsewhere in your body. So you don't want to necessarily go to sleep after that, because you want your blood, like you want your heart rate lowering when you sleep. But if your body has a purpose for your blood, your heart rate is going to remain higher, because your heart is trying to pump the blood through your body, right?
Wait, I don't know.
You feel lazy.
Biology.
Hold on one sec. And the last thing is, after you eat a big meal, it's very common to feel sort of like a coma stage, right? Where you just don't feel like moving anything.
Yeah.
That happens for a lot of reasons. This is not the only reason, but one reason is, again, all your blood's being drawn towards your torso for whatever reason, either to bring stuff there or take things away. Your blood, when you want to be energetic, your blood is in your extremities, right? In your legs and your arms. So that's just another way for your body to tell you, hey, maybe don't start running right now, right away. So, but moving helps with digestion. So right after you eat, if you sit down, it takes a lot longer for that food to actually digest and move through your system than if you had taken a walk, like for 30 minutes or something, right?
Yeah.
So your actual digestion rate improves. I mean, people who have acid reflux or have different sort of digestion or stomach issues like that. I mean, again, I hate to say this is the cause because there are so many different reasons for almost anything that happens, but improper digestion is a problem that I feel like a lot of people have, and they kind of attribute it to different things. Anyway, what were
I
you
know
going to say?
I have it.
But Melissa, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that you pretty much answered it. You're very good at that. You're just mind reading. So, yeah.
But so all that to say, food timing, just don't eat close to when you go to sleep, and whether you eat a big meal or a small meal, try not to time it so that you have a bunch of food in your stomach when you're trying to go to sleep, right? And we can hear we can quote a bunch of studies. That's not going to make a difference. That's just just a rule of thumb. Don't have food in your stomach.
What
when you
would you recommend though if you have to eat later? What would you? Is there like certain food groups or certain things that?
No. I mean, nothing different from what I would normally say in terms of eat whole foods and about things like that.
I thought I heard. I don't remember from where, but I have this impression that certain foods are easier to digest than others, and so I'm wondering if that has to...
in the nutrition episode, we talked about how it takes longer for fats to digest than carbs. That being said, if you eat carbs, that'll spike your insulin and your blood sugars higher than if you had eaten fats. There are a lot of performance implications too. Like, did you just work out? Are you trying to fuel for a workout the next day? You would eat something different the night before. So the answer could be very complicated. Generally speaking, you eat what you eat. You don't necessarily, unless you're trying to be on the pointy end of a race or something, food, if you're eating whole foods, healthy foods, vegetables, things like that, you're fine. I wouldn't stress so much about it.
Okay.
I feel like I'm forgetting something that I wanted to say, but maybe we'll move on and maybe it'll come to me. But anything, go ahead, Simon.
Also, I don't know if this is, depending on, so if you eat a lot of fried food, that can kind of mess up your sleep as well. I know from experience that if I had, even if it was at 4 or 5 o'clock, if I had Chinese food or if I had, I don't know, anything else that's deep fried, my energy throughout the day then isn't that good.
You mean the rest of the day?
The rest of the day.
What do you do after you eat it? Do you normally walk around for 30 minutes to an hour, or do you kind of sit down? Or
I've done both.
Yeah. I would besides the fact of what you eat, besides that, it all kind of leads to poor digestion, right?
Yeah.
The grease, the inflammatory marker, Yeah, that's a good point. And that just, again, adds to the fact that different things will take different amounts of time to digest. But generally speaking, you don't want to have a lot of food. Cool. All right, let's move on to things that you should do. And I feel like this is a good time to introduce the umbrella under which we are going to place all of these things. And that umbrella being a sleep time or a nighttime schedule. Or not a schedule, a routine, right? We as humans, we love routines. Routines puts us in a specific mindset, right? I have a routine before I do anything that I do on a frequent basis. So I have I have a pre-training routine, I have a pre-race routine, pre-everything routine, and then post routine, So routines are powerful because it teaches us not only habits in terms of actions, but it teaches us what to feel. It literally can spark emotions and feelings. And one of those emotions / feeling could be the feeling of being tired, So it's a good way to manipulate ourselves into feeling tired if we have this sort of established sleep routine, right? And so the thing about the circadian rhythm is if it's at all possible, and I know it's not possible for everyone like you, Melissa, right now with your weird sporadic schedule, but if at all possible, it is a lot easier to have a good sleep routine if you can go to sleep and wake up at generally the same time every day. Yeah. And It can be like plus or minus an hour or 90 minutes or something. But generally speaking, if you go to sleep and wake up at around the same time, it's going to be a lot easier to, get good quality sleep and instill this sort of routine, and a lot easier to get more out of it. Any comments? Anything you guys noticed? I mean, I know for me, the times that I have managed to lock in a consistent go to sleep and wake up time, again, even if it's like plus or minus an hour, things just work a lot better all across the board. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I noticed that too.
I don't think I've paid attention, but I do know that the feeling of being able to wake up without an alarm and still feeling rested, maybe that is what it is. But
that definitely comes from it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is definitely a nice plus that comes out of that. So
that's awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
I just realized we forgot one thing in the shouldn't category.
What?
The whole cycle of sleep, and how if you wake up at a certain amount of time, don't go back to sleep because you realize you didn't get enough sleep. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Honestly, I mean, that's fine. I would just say don't take naps too late in the day. Don't sleep too late in the day. That's all I would say on that.
But I meant like more in the middle of the night.
You can go back to sleep.
Oh, I thought you can't. Okay.
Yeah, go back to sleep.
Oh.
I just would not take a nap longer than 30 minutes to 45 minutes, because if you get longer than that, you start your sort of sleep cycle and that kind of gets off. And I would not take a nap after, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., even 4, just because then that starts to get closer towards your sleep time. But besides
and
that,
also,
yeah.
Simon, if you do wake up, I've seen this more in the context of pet care. I really want to foster kittens, but anyway, if they're really small and you have to feed them in the middle of the night, then you have to be up in the middle of the night. Also, I guess with you have babies, but I don't have those yet.
No.
So I've seen recommendations that are literally like wear a face mask or not a face Corona, a sleeping mask.
Yeah.
Until you literally like get to the kitten, and then you take it off, feed them, and then put it back, and then go back to sleep, or whatever you have to do, or if you want to get water, and probably don't look at your phone, something I'm guilty of. But I've also noticed sometimes if it's really hot, all I need is a drink of water, and I don't use lights anyway, but if you do that.
That happened to me too in the middle of the night. I got thirsty.
So that's a very good point, because so all the things that we listed as things you should not do is also equally as relevant if you wake up in the middle of the night, right? For example, the don't look at blue light thing. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you got to use the bathroom, even if you have to use lights, don't look at blue light, because that'll literally tell your body, oh, it's dawn, it's sunrise, time to wake up, and you are literally not going to, either go back to sleep, or if you do fall asleep, your sleep will be, very like restless and not deep, Yeah. So again, either don't use any lights, or use like a salt lamp or dark, like red light, orange,
Is that what night lights are?
That's what they're supposed to be, but most night lights are actually blue or green or bright color. Like they're not actually lights that should be used at night. So if you can find a night light that is like red, that'd be awesome, because then it works. Cool. So for this routine that we're building, let's set a hypothetical go to sleep time at 11 p.m. Right, just as an example. So I would start setting the mood, or I would start the routine, let's say at 8 p.m., right? And all that means is that 8 p.m., when 8 p.m. comes around, I'm not going to eat any more food, right? And again, this is just an example. This is, feel free to mess with this. I'm not going to eat any food around 8. Ideally, I'm not going to pick up my phone after 8, maybe push that to 9, but figure out whatever works for you. And you can kind of filter things and schedule them as you get closer to that 11 p.m. go to sleep time, right? But the point is just keep it consistent. If it's like, every day, 8 p.m., not going to eat any more food. Once you decide that, once you do that for a few weeks, it'll become a habit. And
so what do you do if you're not looking at your phone for 2 hours?
What else is there in life, Simon, if you're not looking at your phone? Anything else besides your phone? Read a book. If you want digital stuff, read a Kindle, which Kindles don't have the bright
Yeah,
Like
but
you
as a
can
blind, like, would you consider listening to an audiobook on your phone, being on your phone? Like,
as long as that was not engaging my analytical brain,
And also, you
right?
probably don't want a narrator who's like super chipper, right?
Excited or
oh,
yes. So
okay.
it just
Yeah.
goes back into the not getting stimulants, whether it be, stimulants are not necessarily just caffeine, right? Something that just sparks your brain.
So reading on, we have this Braille display called Braille Notes. How about reading on the Braille Note? That's cool, right?
If you're not reading a thriller or something, dude, it's the media matters less than what you're consuming.
Oh, okay.
You know, you can put on a set of blue lighting blocker glasses if you're sighted and watch a Netflix documentary on dolphins, right? And if that gets you super chill, then that's fine to do.
Okay.
It's so trying to find like workaround. You know what I mean? It's
Don't do Sudoku before you go.
yeah. The point is think: does this relax my brain? Is this introducing stimulants into my system, whether visually or auditorily or anything else? And if those two questions answer no, then it's probably good to do. You know?
Gotcha.
So now I do kind of want to ask
Yeah.
I guess, a blind specific question. If
Yeah.
you do have to, like, how many people have the luxury of time to not be on their devices 2 hours before, homework or work or whatever?
I would, before you finish your question, I would argue that if you were disciplined with your time during the day and you actually were effective at getting things done, you would have, most people would have that time
Either like
before
with
to go to
travel
sleep.
time, like when you're in the city and all that. Like,
What do you mean?
not trying to say like, if you are at work all day and then it takes you even more time to travel back and forth, like you lose most of the day. And if you still have some work to do at home, I feel like it might not be that easy. But
Then put on a pair of blue light glasses or something if you still got to look at a computer screen.
okay.
You know?
Well, okay. My question was
Yeah.
going to be, if you just, for us, just turn off the screen. Does that, I mean,
Again, if whatever you're consuming is not stimulating you, right?
right, but so now there are two different things. There's blue light, and then there's mental.
there's mental
like-
stimulation, and then there's like sensory stimulation.
Right. So can turning off the screen get rid of the sensory problem?
Yes, as long as they're if you have partial vision, which I'm assuming you're asking, that's why you're
Yeah.
turning the screen off in the first place, right? Because if you were totally blind, then well, whatever. But if you have partial vision, then you would also be concerned with the lights and things like that, right?
Well, but you also said that people have the blue light receptors other places. So technically, wouldn't that mean Oh, that's actually something. Weren't you going to get into that, blind people and sleep schedules? I thought you were. But regardless of if you are, isn't that still, if you do have receptors, different places on your body, then having
Yes,
vision or not should not.
but the big ones tend to be, and the ones that are studied the most tend to be in your eyes.
Oh, okay.
And unless you're shining a laser beam up your nose or in your ear, those tend to not. Yeah. So in terms of the eyes one, and also that depends on the type of visual impairment, right? Some people have their eyes surgically removed. That's
Yeah.
a different case than someone who has a clouded cataract but still has
Yeah.
functioning eye. Generally speaking, worry about the phone screen, but then they're also, again, like we said, lights and things like that, and then it goes into sounds, right?
So the things in your different body parts are not as
I wouldn't.
concerning
I mean,
as the actual.
you would have to. I mean, there's an order of operations to what you should worry about, right? Worrying about light touching your hand is something that you should worry about only after you handle literally everything else that we were talking about and really get that in alignment.
Okay, I can buy that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we can talk about the blind people specific and their whack job sleep schedules, but let's talk about the things that we should do first, and then we can do a little thing on the blindness. So we talked about things to do. The biggest thing that you should do is have a routine. Whatever the routine is, just make it a habit, right? Do it consistently. And things that you could do, and this is totally subjective on the type of person you are, but some ideas about ways that you can get yourself in the mood of sleep include journaling, reading, even like mental sort of like meditation or some sort of yoga flow routine, even if it's like a 15-minute nighttime stretch thing, like Simon was saying, talking about stretching, anything in the genre of calming your mind to get you in the mood of sleep. Say if your bedtime is 11 p.m., maybe do that at like 10:30, just to like wind down, you know?
Would a bath or like a
Yeah, if that gets you calm,
Yeah.
definitely.
even
Yeah.
if it's like a swim that's not like a speed swim, like treading water type swim.
Yeah, I would put that. I would put a very chill swim in the same category as a very chill yoga routine or a walk around the block or something. You know. Yeah, I think that's awesome. We talked about having that constant sleeping window, right? Plus or minus about an hour. And that sort of comes down to the idea of, well, I guess no, we'll talk about the rest, but then we'll talk about placebos. So other things you can try include things that you can take, such as Melissa said. Did you say chamomile tea? Someone said chamomile. Simon or one of you said chamomile tea.
No,
I'm pretty
but
sure I said melatonin.
Okay, so well, let's start with the. So if
milk and
part of
honey.
setting the mood, right? For example, doing your yoga routine or whatever, you can pair it with, say, like chamomile tea, which is known to sort of calm. It has a slight. The word is escaping me, but it has a slight effect of calming, right? Similar thing is like a CBD oil, or anything that gets that effect from a substance, right? Simon mentioned melatonin. Some people rely on melatonin. I would say if you have to take it, but don't relying on melatonin to fall asleep, in my mind, is similar to relying on caffeine to wake up in the morning. It's I'll take it sporadically. Personally, I'll take it sporadically. It's like if I'm flying somewhere in a different time zone, I might take that on the first night or two just to get my body sort of readjusted
See,
to the
I
new
thought it was
time.
a lot more harmful than that. I don't know where I got this impression, but I was like, if you take it once, you're done. You're doomed. You're an addict.
No. So there are other sleeping pills that are a lot more harmful to you. Melatonin is mostly benign. The biggest danger with melatonin is that if you take it for a super long time, and by that I mean more than a few weeks, like daily use, it tends to decrease your own natural melatonin production. Which, if it does decrease it, depending on how long you've been taking it, if you've only been taking it for like a month and it starts to decrease, then by stopping to take it, your body will like ramp up its own endogenous, melatonin production. If you've been on melatonin for 3-4 years, that's a slightly different story. It'll still hopefully build back up, but it might take more time, and it might be sort of rough, a rough road. But no, it's cool. Any comments on those, on like substances to take? We talked about in the last section about how alcohol is not a good substance to take before you go to sleep, even though it helps you fall asleep. Any comments, guys?
I guess we can cut this out if anything.
Oh, wait,
What about
is-
marijuana? Oh.
Oh.
Well, we talked about CBD, but actually smoking it.
So cannabis. Okay, so let's define it, right? The cannabis is a plant. Marijuana is a plant that you can ingest in different ways, either eating it or smoking it.
Yes.
CBD or cannabinoids. CBD is along with THC.
Oil, right?
What are these things?
Yeah, I'm explaining it. So CBD and THC are two of the main components in marijuana or cannabis, the plant, right? The psychoactive part of cannabis, psychoactive meaning the part that actually makes you feel high, is the THC in the cannabis plant. The CBD does not make you feel high. So a lot of people, especially in the athlete world these days, take CBD because they get the effects of, like the medicinal effects of marijuana or cannabis without getting high, right? And so and bear in mind, there are very few studies actually studying any of this, but the reported effects are things like decrease in joint, like in any sort of chronic pains. It mellows you out. It sort of gets you in a chill. Like if you're a type of person to be constantly brain like go go go, it smooths you out a little bit without actually making you high. So that's a lot of people like taking CBD for that reason. Go ahead. Or any thoughts on that or comments?
No.
Oh well,
it's-
you said
yeah.
well no. Your first thing was should you smoke marijuana or not or take it? I would put that in the same category as alcohol. Or well, it's okay. That's very controversial. Some people who's bucket hate that. I would put that in the same category as it's a substance. If you do it recreationally, that's totally up to you, right? You make your own decisions. I would not get in the position that you have to rely on any substance to go to sleep, whether that be marijuana or alcohol or melatonin or anything like that. Just being reliant on an external substance in order to go to sleep, and you are unable to go to sleep if you don't have that substance, does not seem like a healthy place to be. So that's all I'll say on that. Melissa, what were you going to say?
I don't know. I agree with that. That's a good way of looking at it.
Cool. Another thing that you should do is lower your body temperature. Now, I was listening to another podcast recently, and they were talking about how there are these mattress pads, and I have one, and there's a few different brands out there, where basically it's a mattress pad, so it goes from the top of your head to your feet, right, long, but it's kind of narrow. Maybe from the center line of my body, it sticks out like 1.5 feet, and both like to my right and left side. So it's about like a single mattress size. And there are hoses sewn into this mattress pad, running up and down the length of the mattress pad, and you connect these hoses to this external little machine thing, and the machine you fill with water, and it cools the water down to a temperature that you set on the machine, and it pumps that water through this mattress pad through the hoses. Basically, it circulates this cold water under you as you sleep, effectively cooling your body temperature down. And it has shown to increase recovery, reduce inflammation, improve deep sleep. It's awesome. I sleep with it like probably one of the best sleep-related purchases I have ever made. But that all just relates to lowering your body temperature, right? Like when you go to sleep, your body naturally lowers its own temperature, and you tend to sleep better with a lower body temperature. And that temperature differs from person to person. But generally speaking, if you compare the temperature that you walk around at during the day to the temperature that you sleep at, the sleeping temperature tends to be lower than the one you walk around at. Any thoughts? I know, Melissa, you've been having some heat issues.
Yeah.
And I know that when it's hot.
That's it, yeah. Go ahead,
Well, but then Simon over
ahead,
here
Simon.
interrupted me. No, kidding.
Sorry, no, I was saying when
Someone.
it's hot. I know that when it's hot, I can't fall asleep at all. So, yeah.
What? Well, yes, definitely agree with that. And it's so cool because I had times when it's been pretty hot where I was sleeping, and when I wake up in the morning, I can feel my body getting warmer. So I like that you said that. It was like a very experiential thing. But I was gonna ask what temperature should it be at when you're sleeping?
I would say that's different for every person because every person has a slight. Yeah. For me, I put the thing down on as low as it possibly can go, and it's awesome. But for other people, that's too low. So.
Also, I think actually I just realized because it's happened to me last night. What you sleep in matters too. So if you're someone that sleeps with pajamas, probably you want to wear something more breathable. Because what happened to me was, it was a bit chilly, kind of, and I was sleeping, but then I noticed myself sweating, and I somehow woke up because my shirt was kind of soaking. So I feel like, yeah, what you wear also matters.
Yeah, I would say it matters in two respects, right? Like temperature and restriction, right? The temperature is sort of dictated by, for example, like the mattress thing we were talking about. For like, whereas if it was super cold, if you had that and you set it to a super low temperature, you probably would not have been sweating, right?
Right.
But the restriction part, I think, is also a big deal because, like, studies show that if you sleep in super tight stuff, it's you're not as much in deep sleep as if you
Right.
were sleeping in a lot looser things. So that's a very good point, and actually that leads me into the thing I was going to talk about before. But I think that sort of encompasses any of this, which is the effect of placebo. Anyone know what that means? What is the placebo effect?
Yeah.
Basically, you think something is going to happen, therefore it happens. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, oh, I joined this weight loss class and I lost 10 pounds. It must really work. Where in reality, you like stopped eating all your chocolate cake or whatever. So yeah, placebo, right? I mean, I'm not exact. Well, whatever. With all of these things, half of the stuff we mentioned in the to-do column, half of them, if not more, are anecdotal at best. It's not like everything has been studied with, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. Like they're, for the most part, these are things that are somewhat studied, but then have conclusions drawn from those studies, So then comes the argument, like, for example, CBD, right? There's a huge movement within the sporting world that loves CBD. There's also a huge movement that's saying, hey, that's all like, snake oil and doesn't actually work. What do you believe? I think the important thing is, it doesn't really matter if it is or not. If it helps you sleep better, why not use it? Even if it doesn't work, even if it's just you thinking that it works makes it work. The point is it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So experimentation, right? Figuring out what works and just go for it. Make sense? Any thoughts?
No. Yeah.
Melissa, you were talking about sleep when it specifically comes to like blind folk. You want to or talk about that a little bit, or just
whatever.
identify what it is?
Well, are we talking about the same thing? I think we are. People tend to have issues sleep, falling asleep, staying asleep.
Well, we know a common one.
Yeah.
Mr. Zhang, Esther Andrew.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
But so do you have any thoughts on why that is? Why is it that a lot of, there's a condition that's named after, right? Called non-24, where it's like, blind people, since they don't have blue light, or a lot of them don't have blue light receptors, their circadian rhythms are not necessarily in sync. Therefore, they don't have like a 24-hour clock. It's like slightly off. So a lot of them have really weird sleep schedules.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't you just kind of answer the question though?
I don't remember what I asked Simon, so who knows? But I feel like there's two sides of this, right? One, I feel like a lot of blind people, Andrew included, and people in general, do not have the healthiest sleep routines, right? You can't blame people in general. Should not blame poor sleep. Like I can't fall asleep, but they're basically playing games up until the time where their body forces them to fall asleep, right? They don't actually have they have neglected the past however long this episode has been, an hour or so whatever. They've neglected to do any of that and just expect their bodies just to shut off automatically when they tell them to, right?
Right.
So I feel like a lot of people who have sleeping issues kind of fall in that category. Well, it's like, yeah, you have a sleeping issue, but have you actually done everything that you can do to try to optimize sleep first?
So I don't want to disprove that because I do agree, but I've also had times where I personally, who I would not say that I have, like chronic sleep issues or whatever you call them, just right now I'm scheduled, but I've had times where I just cannot fall asleep and I'm lying there, no phone, in the dark, comfy clothes, all of the things, and it just won't happen.
No, there are times like that, and there are people like that. I just meant for the vast majority of times and people that, they have not done everything that they can. You know what I mean? I'm talking we're going to talk about things that you can do. But before we do that, I feel like it's like when you're trying to lose weight. Before you buy all the supplements and you buy all the different equipment and different things like that, maybe start eating a little better first. You know what I mean? Like there are things that you should do first before trying to turn all the little levers. And in this situation, taking a melatonin supplement or something, that's a small lever, right? Not being on your phone or computer up until the split second before you're trying to go to sleep. That's a bigger thing that you have control over now that you can change and try to do, right? But anyway, so Oh, I should add another thing. Another thing to the list of things you should do that we were talking about before is actually exercise during the day, right? If you have a ton of energy at night, chances are you didn't use that energy during the day. So it doesn't have to be a long, like 2-hour grueling workout. It could literally just be 15 minutes of just movement. But trying to get that movement in daily helps.
Yeah.
You know?
Though you said pacing does not count, which makes me sad.
I mean, walking counts if you walk a lot during the day. You know, you look at very, like healthy people in the world who are not athletes, right? Just healthy people. A lot of them just walk or hike or just move low levels of aerobic activity, but they just do it chronically and they do it a lot.
Right.
You know? But anyway, so in terms of blind specific, that's where the things like, for example, the lasers in my ears and things like that, like where I'm trying to figure out how to hack it, right? Because you do get to the point where it's like, all right, I don't pick up my phone before bed, or like I don't watch anything stimulating. I don't drink caffeine. Like you go down the list and you check all of the boxes, and you're still having some issues, right? And then there, like having no sight, that introduces another element, right? Another factor. So just identifying those factors and trying to find workarounds. So like in this case, the factor is, you don't have blue light receptors in your eyes. Therefore, you are lacking that stimulation from the sun or from the visual cue to center your circadian rhythm, right? You identify that as a factor negatively affecting sleep. Well, then you figure out solutions. Okay, how can I artificially get this blue light stimulation? You can get it either by walking in the sun every morning. If you have the ability, right? If you live in a house or something, or if it's sunny, just going outdoors and being in sunlight in the morning for like 15 minutes, that could be a big help, right? If you can't do that, then artificially creating that sunlight, shining a blue light laser in your ear, like I'm trying to do, and figure out if it works or not, you know? And that's just one example. Taking a vitamin D supplement early in the morning, I don't know, just figuring, identifying what your factor is, what your issue is, and then figuring out a solution for that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts? Any comments?
No.
Good advice.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Yeah.
And we make it sound, it's a lot easier said than done, right? This takes a lot of time and trial and error to sort of figure out what works, right? And like for me personally, I still have not figured out 100% foolproof way that it works. And even if you do, it does not mean you're going to have perfect sleep every single night, right? Things will happen that interrupt that perfect sleep cycle. But we're just aiming for good, like we're aiming for better than average sleep. We're aiming for greatness. We're aiming for, maybe we can even aim for perfection. And if we fall short once in a while, that's just life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Melissa, you're sounding more and more tired. Maybe you should take some of the things that we talked about earlier on this episode so you feel less tired.
Except I'm not. I'm actually going to do what I'm not supposed to do and go eat because I have not done that in many hours. So I will start tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I will actually start that too. I mean,
famous words. I will start that tomorrow. Anyway, cool. I feel like we covered some good stuff this episode.
Did we talk about, or did you want to get on like what sleep cycles are? Is that important?
I feel like, why don't we have a second sleep episode if we like identify things we haven't talked about, and then we can get really into the science about what, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like learning about different sleep cycles, it's interesting, but it's not necessarily it's not necessary to get started in improving, right? It's just fun to know. And I don't want to bore everyone, all the one person who's listening. But all right. So anything else we got to cover, or is this all good?
Oh, good.
I think.
All right, cool. Well, you can follow us at Run with Chestnut on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Send us a tweet or a DM on Instagram, or comment on our post on Facebook. Tell us what you'd like to hear more. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and anywhere else you find your podcasts. For Melissa and Simon, my name is Francesco. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and join us next time. See you guys later.
See ya.
Good night.